Watch me eat. Watch me eat.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your favorite legend gamer now, Jamsys. Spoiler alert for the video, but yeah. Just in time, well, you know, before landy comes and blows up the meta, I just wanted to try and hit legend for that legend sticker thing, or like the peak rank, you know, for vanity purposes. I've actually never hit legend before, so it's going to be quite a journey, but I'm very excited to try it out because I think I found a draft that works pretty well for me. I haven't told though, it is a little bit bench. But anyway, my first opponent here picks APOC, which is not a super common first pick, but you know, we always respond with pay rare DJB because we're boring and nah, I'm kidding. But it is a pretty good answer to it just because Payra is able to restrict and potentially infinite stun lock APOC down the road. DJB isn't the best, but you know, because once DJB uses S3, he's kind of a prime target for APOC to rest someone with the S3 because he loses his crit damage reduction, but you can draft around the rest of the team, so we can work around it. Anyway, my opponent picked Zeo Leica, which is kind of unexpected. I honestly should have expected some sort of Leica play once they first picked APOC, but whatever. We pick Adin here just because Adin's pretty good into Leica, and the other two picks, we pick FCC just so we have like flexibility in case this turns like really cleavy. I can try to bring it around. My opponent picks Opsig, which, you know, pretty much cements that he's going for some aggressive play here, which is not too surprising. And the last pick is going to be Leica. A pretty decent draft, except Leica is kind of hard countered by my DJB here just because he is an Eternatus, so I'm not too afraid of whatever this Leica is going to do to me. I decided to last pick Acid here just because Acid is a pretty decent DPS. I have a feeling my opponent's going to ban Adin, thinking that my Acid is not a real DPS, but my opponent is in for a nasty surprise once this match starts. I switched my Payra's imprint to defense because, you know, she has enough effectiveness to debuff everything on the board anyway. And we do outspeed with Payra, which is pretty expected. I'm not gonna lie. We press S2, we brick the unbuffable onto APOC, which kind of hurts because, you know, Leica can give her immunity and that can kind of screw up me infinitely provoke locking her. My opponent's Leica does outspeed my Acid, which is kind of tragic because my Acid is only 305, so I guess he isn't as fast as he's supposed to be, which is quite the statement. My opponent surprisingly goes for the S3 here, guessing they didn't go for the S2 just because I had unbuffable on his whole team plus restrict. Anyway, we go for the DJB S3 with Eternatus, and I kind of have to decide what I'm more afraid of, and I think I'm more afraid of this Opsig just because her S3 ignores ER when there's barriers, so we go ahead and take her out. And if my opponent was expecting my Acid to be a sitting duck, they were wrong because Wind Rider is fair and balanced, and I'm able to just sit in stealth for the foreseeable future. Again, APOC having that immunity buff is kind of tragic because it means that I can't just infinitely provoke lock with Payra, or not with Payra. I can't infinitely provoke lock with FCC or like continuously stunner with Payra, but it's fine. Leica goes, she presses her S3, but it doesn't really do anything because of the skill nulls. APOC's able to go here, but you know, should be pretty smooth sailing. One big strength about Acid on Wind Rider, or like Acid in general, is that if you are able to survive to his second S3 and you're able to soul burn it with an attack buff, it actually does a lot of damage once Frenzy and stuff is accounted for. We get a dual attack that didn't matter onto Leica, but we get a dual attack that kind of matters onto Leica, but you know, since APOC resisted unbuffable, I'm not gonna cry about it. The dual attack allows us to actually kill Leica and go back into stealth, but it wouldn't have mattered because we would just provoke lock it with FCC, so like net neutral butterfly effect, whatever it's called. Anyway, now that the only thing that's left is to kill this APOC, but again, the unbuffable not sticking actually really cuts us here. Because of that immunity, the APOC is not silenced and they're able to bring something back. But I'm curious to see if my opponent's gonna ram it into Acid, but it looks like they ram it into DJB instead. It was honestly kind of close, especially with FCC barrier and escort, but they bring back literally the worst target they could have and they end up forfeiting out. But a little RNG fiesta, I guess, but if Peyra landed the unbuffable onto Arabi, I cannot stress enough how this game would have been over from the beginning. But it is fine. We're just gonna move on to the second match. But one thing you need to note about Legend, gaming and Legend, is that they will punish you incredibly hard if you make a mistake. And you're about to see that in this match here. My opponent first picked Steny, but his pre-bans kind of scream like cleave-ish or cleave adjacent at least with the Karina ban. So I decided to play safe and pick good old reliable here, which is Peyra DJB. It's good against most things, Astras, because it suffers against a few drafts, so it's not too great against Lua, and it is not great against effectiveness Zio if my Peyra doesn't outspeed, but like, you know, that's a little piggy. But I see Lua Zio, and I, for some reason, decided this is somewhat of a standard match, and I picked Sylvan Sage Vivian Landy here. So my opponent immediately goes for the punish, and one thing to note about Peyra is that she's really bad at punishing green units just because of the 50% chance to miss. So that kind of sucks. And then on top of that, my opponent picks another green unit, so my Peyra's actually useless here. I kind of have to backpedal and pick FCC and hope that my team can like somehow tank this. But it's not looking too great for me. I think what I should have done is maybe I should have banned like the Pavel and hope that my opponent would push back Peyra instead, but I kind of go for the piggy play. I was going for the outspeed, but you're gonna see that even if I do outspeed, it doesn't really do anything. Just because, you know, I can't stun the Pavel, Lua, and Sid unless I decide to pull out my secret Arnell and soul burn into them. But I decide my best option currently is just soul burning the Pavel and seeing where it goes. And we miss, so we instantly top right. But that was definitely winnable, or at least not as or it shouldn't have been as much of a landslide if I picked a little bit better. Like, I saw the Lua Zio Karina pre-ban. It was obviously some sort of cleave setup, but whatever. You learn from these mistakes. This is why playing RTA, if you are serious about climbing, this is why it's important to play a lot of RTA, to know what you're supposed to do in the scenarios, or just watch a lot of people play Epic 7, I guess. But it's usually better to do it firsthand. Anyway, we run into Kotick here. So Kotick is one of those infamous, or is it just famous? But like, he's basically one of those very well-known tank down players in global server or Europe, or is it Asia, or like whatever. But he's well known for being tank down. But he first picks Lua, which is kind of disgusting. But he has, from my knowledge, he has very, very good gear. So he has like 480 gear score on like supports. 480 gear score is already very impressive on DPSs or like bruisers, but 480 on supports is kind of disgusting. I'm not gonna lie. Well, my opponent picks LRK Steny, and so I decide to respond with a little bit of my standard play with Sylvan Sage Vivian and then Architect Leica just to threaten his tanks. He picks Adin, which is a pretty good pick into both Sylvan Sage and Architect Leica. And it's looking like I just have to ban last and just rip the Peyra S2 anyway. Even though that might actually kill my Architect Leica. But I'm not too afraid of this A Tywin. So I decide to go for the Roy Mustang last pick and see if I can break down his team before his team kills mine. But I'm pretty confident about it just because, you know, we do have a lot of damage on our side. Surprisingly, he does end up banning the DJB, which wasn't what I was expecting because I don't think his LRK or a Taiwan is on protection set. But I guess it's mostly for like the immunity or whatever, or like the anti-Lua, but I didn't want to risk pressing S2, S1 on Lua, so I decided to ban Lua out. But, you know, my Architect Leica is able to go here, and I have been in this situation before, and I was like really confident. I was like, oh, this match is basically over. I'm Bingus Chilingus, like this Architect Leica is just gonna kill a Steny and his LRK, and then we're just gonna have like a nice chill walk in the park. But apparently, his team's way too tanky for that, and I was like, oh, we're in trouble. Luckily, we do not proc the counterattack with Adin because we hit, because if we proc the counterattack with Adin, I think we would have lost 100%. But anyway, we do have attack buff on Roy, and we're soul burning here, but it's doing a lot less damage than I'm expecting. So I'm like, how much EHP is on this A Taiwan? I was kind of hoping to kill the LRK plus, you know, Steny with this Roy S3, but that's apparently not in the cards for me. And literally nothing died, despite me taking like 8 turns this battle. So I'm getting kind of shook. But Sylvan Sage Vivian, thankfully, is able to kill off the Steny and a Taiwan. His team survived for that long just because Crown of Glory is fair and balanced, but you know, I'll complain about it another time. He goes for the S1 into Roy, just for the sustain, I guess, and to make sure that Roy dies to like any follow-up damage. But it looks like this A Taiwan is just full tank, judging by how it's 29k HP, which is a little bit disgusting. Anyway, this match is coming down to a RNG fiesta where I need to just hit this Adin, because if this Adin counters one more time, we're a little bit doomed. But we're going for as much chip damage as we can here. With the Peyra, we rip the S2. We hit the Adin again, which is kind of funny. But everything else is stunned. I'm kind of curious to see what he's going to go for the S3 on. I think it might be Sylvan Sage Vivian, because Sylvan Sage Vivian has the potential to like potentially anchor this team out and murder his DPS in the long run. And that's what it looks like he does. This Adin is on lifesteal, which is a little bit spooky, but it should be fine. We go for the Architect Leica target, which makes it so that we have a 50% chance to hit or something. And we luckily do get the piggy hit the first time. So this Adin has been doing a pretty bad job for Kodak here. But I'm pretty confident that even with a miss, my Roy should kill, because the Adin was so low. But we do manage to hit for another 25k. And great job, Adin. Evasion units. But we managed to bring down Kodak here for a very, very, very piggy Luxac win. But you know what? I will take those, because in any other situation, I do not think I would have won. The culture shock, or like, not the culture shock, just like the shock of my ML Leica not killing anything was a little bit disturbing, I'm not gonna lie. My Roy too, considering that I literally dumped like 60 souls into that team. But Whale Gear just hits differently, you know? We are playing their game. But anyway, we're gonna move on to the next match. My opponent's pre-bans, Lua, AOL, are pretty common for standard, so I was very comfortable picking up Steny here just so my opponent couldn't. And we just wait for my opponent's picks. But yeah, my opponent first picks Celius. Are we surprised? Not really. Even with Summer Luluka coming out and making our stocks go down, me pre-banning Summer Luluka makes it so that I pretty much see Conquer Lilius every game. But since Peyra is also uncontested, I'm pretty confident in picking my Peyra against most Liliuses and my DJB2 as an all-around check. My opponent picks Shuna, which is really annoying, but I don't really know how to deal with this sort of draft in standard, so I decide to play a lot more aggressively on the follow-up and pick Briarwitch and Zahak. And you might be thinking that this is a really risky pickup, Selena already on the board, but I had a feeling that my opponent would pretty much ban Bryceria because my Bryceria counters Celine, and then my Peyra can go ahead and stun the Celia's turn 1, and then just go from there. My opponent actually does not pick something I'm too afraid of, and so I go for the ban onto T-Cern. I mean, onto Celia's. In hindsight, I think a decent ban for this actually would have been a ban onto Adin, so I could S2 with Peyra, but it's a little bit risky because I don't know if my opponent's actually going to ban Peyra, and then I would be forced to, you know, sit there with my attack down and shit. Anyway, we decide to go for the raw dog S1 into T-Cern, but we don't get the stun, which kind of sucks. So I try and see if I can fish a stun onto the Celine, but we cannot, so that kind of sucks. But now it's the Hawk's turn, and then I decide to actually just run this S3 into Celine, because judging from the DJB damage, I figured that this Celine was really squishy, so I wanted to finish her off as soon as possible, just so I can go ahead and press my buttons as soon as I can on my 2 support units of DJB Peyra. Unfortunately, my Zahak gets stripped here, so it basically guarantees that he's gonna die. My opponent's not running the S3, the T-Cern S3 into my team, which basically tells me that this is a basket Cern, so he's waiting for a Gab proc to one-shot my Steny from stealth, which is useful to know, My Zahak dies here, RIP. But now that we're actually able to press our buttons, we're able to just go ahead and press all our buttons here. We push up with DJB-S3, but we're gonna hold the DJB-S2 just because if Shuna ever decides she wants to press her S2, that's a lot of free damage for my team. And yeah, we basically just have to get rid of this Adin, and I think DJB Peyra can honestly solo T-Cern if they have to, even if this thing is on lifesteal set. Anyway, we go for the Peyra S3 to get attack buff, and we basically have to kill off the Adin here just so we can start pressing our buttons, but Adin again does not do what she's supposed to and gets deleted. But in fairness, an S1, S3 would have done the same thing where it would have killed because we have attack buff and like frenzies giving us attack and stuff. But my opponent is basically doomed at this point. Basket procs, but again, T-Cern's push is not going to save her from Peyra's natural speed, just running her over again and again. But yeah, we got a bit of good RNG, but there were a lot of matches where I lost. So if you guys know who Korean Jesus is, or like KJ, Go Meow Me, I faced him earlier, like 2 games before this, and then his ran RNL out of my Peyra stun, and then procced another RNL, and almost 100-0'd my APOC because I had no mitt, because he def broke me. So I do not feel bad about matches like this in the slightest. It's just karmic justice is what I'm telling myself. But anyway, we are 1 game off legend, so hopefully I can hit legend here. But my opponent is a little bit roping me. Oh my god, my English. My opponent is roping me a little bit here with the picks. The first pick Scarowell, the Lua pre-ban, the Lua AWOL pre-ban basically told me that they're so standard, so I decided to pick up DJB Steny here because DJB is really good into Scarowell and is one of the reasons why you don't see too much of Scarowell nowadays in favor of other mid options or like more aggressive play. My opponent picks Abigail, which I thought was a little strange, but you know, it makes sense because Abigail places Curse onto Steny, so they don't actually need Reach for Steny. They can just pick other strong single target DPS and deal with her. But Abigail is actually really weak to Peyra just because of the unbuffable. They pick Celine, which is a little bit disgusting. not disgusting, but it's like a really annoying unit. Like, if you play any other style, you will find that Celine isn't that big of a problem for you, but for Pair DJB, Celine is actually a really annoying pick because I don't have too many great options to deal with it. I decided to pick Bryce Area here, just to have Celine bait if I need to, but they end up picking Edward, which kind of sucks. But it was pretty much what I was expecting, and I'm thinking of either a Arya solo or a Milim solo, depending on the last pick here. So it looks like my opponent's going to last pick Designer a little bit, which means that I'm probably gonna pick Arya because this team's pretty much Arya fodder. Most teams are, if I'm being honest. And we go for the Edward ban. And the reason we go for the Edward ban is because Designer a little bit does not have immediate consequences for pressing in the way that Edward does with his counter. So we can still get the Bryce Area S3 potentially to place Unbuffable on, and then her follow-up attack will kill through Abigail's passive. So that's the thing I'm kind of fishing for in this game. But my opponent recognizes that Bryce Area is pretty good against his team overall and decides to ban it out. And then, so what we're gonna do here is basically shift all our imprints to Arya and hope she can solo. There is a lose condition in this game actually, where if this Arrowwell has enough effectiveness to strip my Arya, it can potentially be bad. And judging by the Arrowwell speed, it kind of is possible, but I do run pretty decent ER on my Arya, where I run like 200 if you calculate in Bastion. But yeah, we basically sacrificed Steady here with S3, but that was something I was more than willing to do. We get up Escort, we basically just put all our eggs into the Arya basket. I've been pretty much abusing Arya a lot since Pair DJB kind of invites in like Edward Dilibet and they just die like a dog to Aryas and ML Lycas. And that's been a draft I've been pretty much loving. But yeah, we do not go for the S2 here because we don't actually want to proc Designer a little bit too early. And then we're going to S1 with Arya here just to get a little bit of sustain. We're able to now press S3 and Abigail is able to go. So the reason why I soulburn here was that just in the off case that this Abigail does hit me, I don't want my Arya to actually die to the Abigail damage. And since we only need one more attack to get the AoE counter, we're basically going to be at full health after this. But yeah, luckily I somehow foresaw this Abigail critting my Arya, and now my Arya is basically going to be healed to full, or not healed to full, but they can't kill her anymore, so this game is pretty much donezo, I think. Arya's taking barely any damage thanks to Escort and stuff. And now it comes down to the point where my opponent is waiting to S3 with the arrow, I guess, which I thought was a little bit strange. But, you know, I'm not going to question it. I just think that they aren't confident in their effectiveness to strip with Arya. And now that we're able to place debuffs onto his Arrowwell, we should be pretty much chilling at this point. We don't want to press S2 here with DJB just because, again, we don't want Designer a little bit to push him too much. Oh, I guess it doesn't matter because Designer a little bit is going to cleanse her team off here. But I was getting chip damage in, I guess. That's my reasoning. In hindsight, I'm retconning it in. I was getting chip damage. But yeah. We're able to just continuously sustain up with Arya. This Celine shouldn't be doing too much damage anymore now that we have Death buff off and Escort. And this Abigail is taking a pretty heavy beating now. But it looks like a pretty much done and clean Arya solo. But yeah, if you made it to the end of the video, I would like to say thank you for your support. Thank you for watching me on my journey. This is actually the first time I've ever hit Legend, so I was pretty proud of that accomplishment. And I don't know if I can end Legend, but I definitely do foresee myself doing a Legend finisher sometime in the next 2 seasons. We got a lucky stun and a dual attack, but I don't think it matters at this point because even Peyra could solo Celine at this health, and we make it into Legend finally, and we're able to get, you know, the nice profile card and stuff. But yeah, if you like my content, like, subscribe, and as always, I'll catch you next time.